This year, my classmates and I had the opportunity to read a bunch of amazing different novellas. The one I chose to read this year was Ring Shout. The book was super informative and captivating and was a change from the books that I usually read, but it was a great twist and I really enjoyed it. The question at hand now is, should or shouldn't Ring Shout be taught in high schools? I believe that it should be because of three major components. The first one being the historical lessons taught throughout the book, the second one being the empowerment of women, and the third one being the man behind the book. The book touches on a couple historical events and moments that aren't usually talked about in schools. Even the title itself has a very meaningful history attached to it. Ring Shout, which is actually a religious ritual which was first practiced by African slaves in the West Indies and in the United States. During these religious rituals, worshippers would move in a circle while shuffling and stomping their feet and clapping their hands. The main historical event taught throughout this book is the Ku Klux Klan. The KKK is depicted as these invincible monsters that are attacking the black community in the book. They were and still are very much real. Now, depending on who you ask, they aren't really monsters, but they are a hate organization that employs terror in pursuit of fulfilling their white supremacist agenda. Lastly, Ring Shout touches a little bit on blackface. Blackface is when white actresses and actors would darken the color of their skin and over-exaggerate their facial features to make a mockery and a fool of black people and their facial features. By reading this novella, students will gain and benefit some new knowledge that isn't usually taught in your average history class or just taught in any class in general. Students will learn what is okay to say, what is not okay to say, what is offensive, what is not offensive, and will even help them know who to watch out for. Having a proper understanding of the past allows you to live a less ignorant future. If more people are educated on what happened in the past, it lessens the risk of people repeating the past, and it gives us a chance to be more united than divided. The second reason why this book should be taught in schools, and my personal favorite reason why they should be taught in schools, is the women empowerment behind this book. All three of the main characters in this book are strong, independent women. The first character being Maurice, who is super intelligent and she holds a lot of power within herself. The second one being Sadie. She's just a total badass. And the third one being Chef. She's super crafty and she actually used to work in the military. All three of these women are their own persons and have their own unique identities. And more importantly, they don't play second to any male character in the story. There is no over-sexualization of any of the female characters in the book, nor were they weak-minded females. This is actually a huge step up from what we were taught in the books that we read throughout high school. In grade 10, you read Lord of the Flies, which is a great story, but there isn't any female representation in that book. Fast forward to grade 12, we got to read The Great Gatsby. The Great Gatsby, again, a great story, a great love story and triangle, but the women in the story are more so accessories to the male character rather than being their own persons. In The Great Gatsby, there are two main female characters, the first one being Daisy and the second one being Myrtle. When it comes to Daisy, she is a woman who married for money and kind of just goes and does whatever Tom says. In the story, we don't really get to know much about her, and she doesn't really get the chance to be her own person, as her story is kind of told for her and her life is kind of planned for her through the eyes of Tom and Gatsby, and she doesn't really have a say-so of what she wants to do and how she wants to really live her life. Then we have Myrtle. Myrtle is married to George. She was tricked into marrying George because she thought he had money, and to try to escape that lifestyle, she ends up having an affair with Tom, and she just becomes this form of sexual object to Tom and nothing more. So both Myrtle and Daisy were never their own persons, and they more so lived under the male roles that they were attached to. Daisy lived under Tom's and Gatsby's character, and Myrtle lived under Tom and George's characters. Ring Shout would actually hold up a very positive mirror to all the young ladies reading the novel. They are shown that women in the story don't always have to be somebody's wife, and that they can be badass and strong and have their own free will and free mind to do whatever they please. So I think that the reading of Ring Shout would have a very positive effect on the female viewers, and will also have a positive effect on the male viewers to give them the insight that yes, a woman can be powerful and that her job and her role isn't to just live under you. Lastly, and most importantly, is the amazing man behind this book. His name is P. Dudley Clark. He is born in New York, raised in Houston, and he spent the early formative years of his life in the homeland of his parents of Trinidad and Tobago. When he's not writing these amazing stories for us, he's actually an academic historian who research spans comparative slavery and emancipations in the Atlantic world. The reason why he's so special is the fact that he's an author of color. When you take a look at all the books that we read from grade 9 to grade 12, they are all written by old white dudes. When you take a look at Lord of the Flies, it is written by a white man named William Golding. When you look at 1984 and Animal Farm, they're written by a white man named George Orwell. When we take a look at Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, Othello, those books and plays were written by a white man named Shakespeare, William Shakespeare. And when you take a look at The Great Gatsby, the book is written by a white man named F. Scott Fitzgerald. Granted, these are all amazing books, but it doesn't show much of diversity. Ring Shout being taught in schools will hold up another mirror to students. This mirror will be held up to students of minority. It'll show students that the requirement to being a successful author isn't being white. And it teaches students that if you take the time and you put in the work and the effort, that you can also be a great author, and your work will be taught throughout schools. To conclude, I believe that Ring Shout being taught in high schools is an amazing idea and will only have positive effects on those reading it and those teaching the book. The book will teach you a little bit about history, so you get to learn the past. It empowers women, so you also learn how to empower women. And for the women and young ladies reading it, they get to see a side of themselves that they don't usually get to see reflected in TV and in movies and in stories and in media in general. And lastly, it holds up this amazing mirror to minorities that you can make it as an author if that's what you strive to be. And even though P. Dudley Clark is an author, his books being taught in school will mean so much more to the communities of minority students, because they're seeing that to make it out in life, they don't just have to be an athlete or a rapper or a dancer, and that they can pursue the academic route and still have a very bright future and a respected one. So I believe Ring Shout is a great addition, and I really do hope to see it being taught in schools soon.